right, welcome everybody to What's in the Box, episodes of horror with Donna and Eric. Of course, I'm Donna.
And I'm Eric.
Okay. And today we are going to be discussing the movie The Exorcist. So, Eric, did you watch the extended director's cut?
No.
Okay.
I was going to. That was my plan, but when I went to search for it, it just kept giving me the old Exorcist.
Yeah, it's not very easy to find to stream anyways. I think I found it, I can't remember, Amazon Prime Video.
That's where I went because I remember you saying that, and I could not find it. Now, I did see it in the theater when it came out, the 20th anniversary. So I do have some recollection of what I missed when I was rewatching it. It didn't have the spider walk down the stairs, which I think is the biggest scene they added. I think they probably added a few minutes to the exorcism stuff themselves, but I still thought it was a good film without the added stuff.
I had seen the original, of course, and then I also had seen the director's cut, or the additional footage edition, anniversary edition that they released. I saw that in a theater. So I've seen both versions. I don't prefer one over the other. Yeah, it's pretty cool that they have the upside down spider walk in the anniversary edition, but I don't know that I missed it because I have between now and then watched the original version, and I don't think it definitely added, but I don't think it took anything away if you didn't see it.
Well, I can tell you this much. It would add to the unbelievability of all the issues we had with the book.
Yeah.
If they would have included the spider walk scene in the book. Mm-hmm. If that would have happened in the movie, then it would have added more to our irritation at how they so strongly thought that this was something other than a demonic possession. Right. I'm thinking if somebody's spider walking down the stairs doing all the other stuff they're doing, that there's a better than zero, chance that she's got possessed by a demon. So
yeah, they did mention it briefly in the book, but they mentioned it more like a serpentine, like a serpent, as opposed to a crab or a spider. Yeah, it was like a very brief. The only thing I remember is Reagan ended up licking Sharon's leg or ankle or something.
Okay, I was trying to think, is it during that time when she physically assaults the mother and she's having the sex with the cross and all that stuff? Because they did do that in the movie, but
no,
was that the time or was it earlier than that?
It was later on.
Oh, it was later than that?
It was later than that. Yeah.
Because I think it felt like as soon as she did that in the book, they had her locked down because she was hurting herself at the other doctor's office. But I don't know. So I didn't miss it last night when I was watching the movie. It's just a cool visual, but the movie was creepy enough without having the edit little bit.
Yeah, I enjoyed the movie. I personally think that somebody could definitely watch the movie and not ever read the book, and they would get the full effect.
Yeah, actually, they did a better job in the movie.
Yeah, because it gave us more demon and less medical jargon.
Well, they cut out and they still had a ton of the medical stuff, but they had it in those little bite-sized clips. It's almost as if the guy that directed it, and of course I'm blanking on his name right now, it's almost as if he was from the future, in the 90s, and he went back in time and filmed it, because we're talking MTV-sized scenes. Mm-hmm. Those were little itty-bitty chunks, and it was all over the place. And I thought, well, this is for somebody who has no attention span. Yeah. Because it had a little bit of the feel of those old 70s movies where they had the drama and a lot of unnecessary talking and the feelings and all that stuff. But he was smart enough to put those little bits of uncomfortableness and unexplained images and all that stuff throughout that to kind of keep you interested, which they didn't do in the book. They bore us to tears with all the doctor's nonsense. And
that was crazy.
The other thing we had a problem with was the inspector, and they did a much better job with the detective you know, they cut out that whole storyline with the hired help,
Yeah,
and we didn't have to deal with that. So it made it a much tighter narrative, even from the detective's perspective. You know, he was there looking into the murder, and he didn't get sidetracked with all the other nonsense, which you know, works in the book sort of, just because it's real life. It feels more natural that he would look into all the other people. But in the movie, I was so happy that they didn't take us down a road.
Yeah, the only thing that I didn't like in the movie is they did the same thing in the book, is they didn't really follow through with the church desecrations.
Yeah, what did we get? We got maybe 25 seconds.
Yeah.
They showed that. They showed Jesus. Was it Jesus or was it
Mary? It was Mary.
Yeah,
Mary,
so she had the thing sticking out, and they painted her, and a little bit of desecration. And I think they did something to the statue of Jesus on the cross too, in the back of the church. But maybe I'm imagining it.
But that was, in my mind, you know, that's, you know, going with the book and the movie, the desecration of the church is a big thing. This is talking about demon possession. Of course, religion is going to play into it. But give us some closure and tell us what happened.
Or
like
don't.
Why, or don't show as much as you did, because in the movie, like, it was a big scene. You know,
it was a big scene.
The priest was going in and setting up for a mass or whatever, and then all of a sudden he's got these desecrations that he's looking at, and it just kind of didn't feel like it was wrapped up.
But the thing they did that I thought was better is, instead of trying to tie it to Reagan in the movie, it's just something that happened in the movie. But in the book, remember, he's the same paint as on the project she does, the bird,
the typewriter.
Yeah, and all that stuff points to the house.
Mm-hmm.
So then it makes a little more sense that they brought it up. In this case, the only reason it feels like they brought it up was to tell you that there was stuff going on to the church next door to where the girl's possessed. But yeah, you're right. They needed to go one way or the other with it. We didn't even need to know that there was desecration at a church. To know that a girl was possessed.
Yeah. And in the book, it was really clear how close they lived to the church.
Right.
But in the movie, it didn't seem that way.
The only way you would think that they might be close was that after she was done at the beginning with the filming, she's walking home and she sees the priest at his house talking to the other priest.
Yeah.
But that still didn't tell us, did she walk? Maybe she's a walker. You know, some people walk for, you know, like, enjoy that. So maybe she did live, you know, far enough away. And then when they did the party, they could have, if they would have not had the huge party that dwindles to the small party, they could have, you know, had a couple lines from the priest explaining why they were there, or that they were close, or that they were filming on, you know, the church's grounds. And then you wouldn't have to have that issue. It's like they just assumed that people threw parties in the 70s
and invited a priest.
Right. Yeah. And we never would have thought, you know, nobody would think that. So,
like, my parents did a lot of partying when I was young, you know, when they were younger, mm-hmm. and I'm pretty sure they never had a priest show up.
Right. You know, and if the guy showed up dressed as a priest, it was a joke, you know, and I didn't like the way they handled the party. Yeah. I didn't like the way it was so big, because in the book it's so intimate, and it really makes what Reagan does that much more shocking.
Yeah.
You know, and then for her, and I get that they waited till everybody was gone, and then she shows up, and then she pees on the carpet or whatever, and says, did she even say anything? I can't even remember. Did she point to the astronaut? And
no, because there was, she said, I believe it's, I'm going to die up there.
Oh, is that what she says? Okay,
yes.
Because that's what she's supposed to say to the astronaut.
Yeah.
You're going to die up there.
Yeah, so to the astronaut in the book, she says, you're going to die up there.
But in the movie,
we don't even know if there's an astronaut there.
But they have the scene where Father Dwyer is talking to the astronaut, and just because we read the book, I realized they were talking about because he says, can you take me up next time so I can do a missionary to Mars or something of that nature.
Oh,
but
okay.
it's like just the background noise talking. If I hadn't been watching it on my computer, I probably wouldn't have caught it at all. But yeah, they did a terrible job of explaining who was at this party, why they were there. And they didn't do a very good job with the director because, he's larger than life in the book and he's
Yeah.
barely a blip. So then you're like, well, I guess that must be why they did the Reagan thing where she says he can come when they go out and that you like him
Yeah.
and that stuff to build it up. Because otherwise you'd have no idea that they were anything other than a working relationship.
Yeah.
So I did find that I thought that was a little, I don't know, like out of character for a movie in the 70s, especially the early 70s.
Yeah. And I wish they would have had the medium in the movie because
Yeah.
I think they could have taken that in such a great
Yeah. I mean, even if
direction.
it's just the, you know,
Here's the book that she gave her,
right,
she
because
gave her that.
they don't even discuss that aspect of her maybe. I mean, they hint that maybe she knows about an exorcism and it could have caused, issues if she's read about or heard about possession. But they hammer that home in the book. And the
Yeah.
father is the only one that seemed to to care whatsoever, the priest. He's the only one
Yeah.
that seemed to care that it might have psychological damage to her if that they go ahead and do it. Now, one thing I thought was ridiculous in the movie that's not in the book as much is they really went out of their way to be supernatural about things. I mean, when they go to play with the Ouija board, the Ouija thing, Linda Blair's not touching it.
Right.
Reagan, it moves on its own. And the mom acts like that's not weird. Oh, you don't want me to play? And they're like, oh no, Captain Howdy doesn't want you to play. But I mean,
Yeah.
that's obviously something happening. There's no, you can't explain how it moves. And the lady doesn't even blink. It's like that's my first. I would have been out of the house at that moment when the game piece moves by itself. I'm gone. And then
Yeah. I'm
later
like,
when she's in the room and the daughter's smacking her and the doors are slamming shut by themselves and the armoire moves across the room and she's still not sold. I don't know. I guess she was
and
more sold than the doctors, but still it didn't seem like anybody was thinking possession as much as
yeah.
they should have been.
I'm so glad they didn't put the spinal tap in that they did in the
Yeah.
book in the bedroom. I'm
Yeah,
glad that was not included.
I was shocked at the MRI and all that stuff. I mean, I forgot
Yeah.
how loud that thing is. I was like, good Lord, man, this seems like a torture device, that little girl.
Yeah. So,
But
it's funny. Speaking of that scene, as a kid, because of course I've watched this when I was probably too young to watch it, that scene more than anything else scared me because of the noise of the machine. And I don't know why. Maybe it's because I had seen like Altered States because that had some like machinery in it. I don't know. But yeah, I remember that scene more than any of the other scenes with Reagan being possessed. That scene scared me the most.
yeah, I can see that because, it's real life medical stuff that both we both saw at a very young age. So it would have been new stuff to us, and to think that that was real, it's way easier to disregard being possessed, but there's a chance you're going to be shoved in that tube and have to have that thing happen at some
Mm-hmm.
point in your life. But yeah, no, I think you're right, and just the whole way they handled it, the way they were so detached to her.
Yeah, and her reaction too.
Yeah,
It was like she was physically in pain. Now, I've never had an MRI, um, but she might have. I think she maybe was reacting because of the sound.
yeah.
But to my eyes, as I remember watching it when I was young, she looked like she was in extreme pain.
And I always wondered if that was supposed to be a reaction because she was possessed or because of her age. And I didn't,
Yeah,
and you never really kind of get an idea out of it, especially because the MRI comes up clean. So if she had the demon or the personality present at the time, you would think maybe the MRIs would be a little different. They could go down that angle, but they totally disregarded all that information. What did
yeah,
you think of the beginning? Because we discussed the beginning of the book and how we didn't really like that chapter with Father Marin. It felt like Father Marin went on forever at the beginning of this movie, but it felt more natural and it felt like a more um, cohesive part of the story, I
yeah,
thought, in the movie than it did in the book.
yeah. I don't know. I really liked the beginning with Father Marin over in Iraq. Um, And this, for some reason, I just always liked that type of movie, centered over in the Middle East. I don't know if you ever see the movie. I don't even know what kind of movie it would be classified as. Sphinx. It took place in Egypt. And I don't know if it's a thriller. It definitely is not horror. But
who's
so I
in
was
it? Can you tell me anybody who's in it?
I cannot. It's a 70s movie. All I remember is it was about people stealing treasure from
yeah, there's a chance I saw it because I watched a lot of bad movies when I was growing up, but it doesn't ring a bell. And it may have been under a different name because they've renamed these 1,000 times. But
yeah, but anyways, so like Middle Eastern type backdrops or settings really interested me as a kid.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I was big into Egypt and stuff. I think it's because it's so different from what we are, exposed to, especially when we were kids. I mean, when we were kids, this isn't something you would see very often. This is not like today where people are a little bit more global.
Right.
So yeah, I'm totally with you. It's a fascinating, beautiful, bleak landscape that when you put anything to it, yeah, I can see how it would be very, I don't know what's the word I'm looking for here, but just entertaining and something that you want to watch, that you're intrigued. It's very intriguing.
Yeah, so it was Sphinx, 1981. Frank Langella was in it. And Leslie Ann Down, John Rhys Davis. So some big names were in it.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, you know what? It sounds familiar, but I'd have to watch a preview.
Yeah, it was just, it was bothering me. I needed to look it up and see. But yes, and I think the atmosphere of the beginning scenes was creepy.
Right.
It set the tone for the movie, I think.
Yeah, I agree.
So I really enjoyed that part of it. In the book,
the book got done. Yeah, I don't want to get started on the book again. Because I mean, it was like Father Merrin's like, I'm doing, whatever I'm doing. And you didn't even get the idea that he was, that deep into the excavation side of it. It almost was like he was just over there doing whatever he was doing. It didn't seem like he was doing any archaeological stuff. And I know they made mention that he was writing books about archaeology and stuff, but at the time it seemed like he was immediately upset and ready to leave because he knew something was happening. In the movie, you really felt something was happening.
Right. Yeah.
Especially with the, what you got the bale or whatever it was, when he found a little face with the stone and he breaks that off. And then right then you can look at his face and you could tell that he knew it was going to happen again. And I thought that was something that just did a terrible job conveying in the story.
Yeah, in the book.
Yeah, but it made it also so that later when he shows up again, you're like, it wasn't like a shock. In the story, in the novel, you're like, oh, if you didn't know Father Merrin was going to be a part of it, you were like, well, what's the point of this beginning? And then when he finally does show up, you're not even, I don't know, you're not invested in him at all. But I mean, you knew from the way they filmed it and the way he reacted and the way he ran from the area to get back home, that you could kind of tell that he was getting ready for something.
Yep.
What did you think of the way they portrayed, and now I'm blanking on his name, the main father? What was his name? Father
Charis.
Father Charis. Yeah. What did you think? Because they changed it a little bit, I thought, from the book. He was a little more sympathetic and a little more, even though we knew that he was having his crisis of faith, he didn't shy away from his duties as a priest as much as he seemed to in the movie.
Yeah. I think they did a good job. I believe it's Jason Miller is the actor. I think they did a great job of choosing the actor because, he's supposed to be a boxer.
Right. And he has that look.
And he definitely has that look. The actor who played him.
The only problem with reading it after seeing the movie as many times as we did is that I immediately pictured the guy. So I didn't have that opportunity because as a kid, I don't remember when I read the book when I was 11 or 12. I don't remember what I thought he would look like. I just had that. In fact, there's a good chance I probably saw the movie before I read the book. So I already had that stamped. I would have loved to have come to that book without any visuals and see what I came up with when I read it. But I think this guy is the closest out of all the other actors and stuff. I think they did knock it out of the park finding this guy.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think he was the only thing that was missing from the movie, I think, is his questions of his faith, or his lack of faith in his religion, because that was a big part of the book. And while the movie touches on it a little bit,
when he's drinking with his boss at that bar and he says, I need to go home and stay with my mom because I've lost, I think he says that I've lost my faith. But that's it, and the fact that he's a dick to the homeless guy, which he isn't in the book. He's still nice to the guy in the book. I just thought that was, I guess that must be how they were trying to portray that he's lost his faith, is that he's not being a good priest in the thing. But yeah, you're right. They needed to have more. Well, did you think the scene with him and Father Dwyer was supposed to be more reinforcing his lack of faith when he's putting him to bed after he's upset about his mother's death and stuff? Now, maybe this is what I said earlier, that they had these little scenes that were cut into, MTV-sized bites. Maybe we were given a disservice because he was cutting so quickly away from these more emotional, impactful scenes that we didn't get the full feeling of his hopelessness within the religion.
Yeah, so. And I know it's easier to convey that in writing, than it is like visually in a movie, but they could have done something like he was counseling the other priests. Maybe have a quick scene where he's counseling somebody, and maybe his advice isn't the best, or maybe a scene where he tells the other priest that, I don't have time for you right now, or something,
anything. Or even if he's just talking to Father Dwyer and saying, I don't have it anymore, I can't handle these whiners. Anything that said that he wasn't into doing his gig.
Yeah, it could have been a conversation with Dwyer. Exactly. He could have been like, I have all the, it's always the same. They come to me and they don't have any friends, and they're questioning whether they need to be here. And then all of a sudden they have friends, and I just tell them to, do something, or.
And then they could have expanded that at the table when he's drinking with his boss, but really they didn't talk about anything other than him saying he wanted to leave. So they could have added another 15 seconds of just what you were saying. We would have got a better feeling of his hopelessness.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's hard to tie it into his loss of his faith, or his doubting of faith, and his mother's death, because a lot of the grief that you see on the thing, you easily would attribute to his mother dying.
Yeah.
And for him feeling that he betrayed her, the way, they set it up to make him the bad guy for not being able to pay for more of the treatments and all that stuff, the uncle.
Yeah.
But
she died at home in the book. Right.
Yeah. And you know what? She died at home in the movie, but we didn't get to see it. Father Dwyer in passing says something. She died at home a couple days. At the end of the movie, when she asks about something, he says something about his mother dying. It's like nothing was timelined correctly. Everything was kind of jumping around.
Mm-hmm.
But I did think they did a much better job with the exorcism
yeah, absolutely, 100%. There was way more. It was, it wasn't, hey, you know what, this is kind of urgent and this girl is dying, but why don't you go take a nap, Charis? It wasn't the book. Or let's get a cardiologist in here to,
Yeah, and that's weird. And it's funny though, I was looking at something about the movie and they were like, they didn't follow the actual rules of the exorcism. I guess there should have been an extra priest there, and there should have been a medical attendant and a family member. So in the book, because there were people kind of in and out of the room, and so we thought that was weird. But it turns out in the movie, they totally just ignored all of it and just had the two priests in the room. Because that stood out to me as I thought, well, they don't have the guy there. They don't have the girl. Was it Sharon, the girl that
Sharon,
helps?
yeah.
She didn't show up to like change the clothes or the bed, the bed or any of that stuff. It was just all focused on the priests and stuff, which, in the movie, it makes more sense. You don't have anything breaking the action and stuff. But it was funny how the movie and the book both went two different directions with the whole idea, and both of them got it wrong. So,
yeah. But it's a great movie. It's one of my comfort horror movies.
It holds up.
Yep, I could watch it 100,000 times and still want to watch it one more time.
I mean, she's Linda Blair's amazing. Now
and
I looked it up. She's 14 when they filmed. Was in the book, I got the feeling Reagan was like
11.
10, yeah, 10 or 11.
Yeah.
So I guess she's a little more mature, but I guess she could play 10 or 11, but I think she was supposed to be a little bit older. But she came across as that. And I thought that actually added to it. And she was just lights out. I thought she was wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
The mom was driving me insane, but she drove me crazy in the book too. So
yeah, maybe we can show our characters here. Let's do that. We'll do this.
But as a possession movie, I think it's one of the best. There's the mom.
Yep. So this is Chris McNeil.
Yeah.
So in the movie, she wasn't as high strung or weird as I thought of her in the book. Right. And of course, you weren't getting the inner monologue in the movie, of course. But the only time she really kind of freaked out is during the scene where she's in the room with all those doctors and she's like, Jesus Christ, can't none of you tell me what's going on with my daughter?
Yeah, which felt like a natural reaction.
Yeah. But in the book, she was like always freaking out. She was freaking out over the rats and, or potential rats. And she was freaking out over
They had that in the movie, but she played it much better. The way they did it, they didn't make it as big a deal as they did in the book. So
yeah. Yeah, but she was yeah. Then of course we have Reagan there.
I read a little thing that the guy, was it Max Van Schneider or whatever, who plays Father Merrin?
Yeah, Max von Sydow.
The first time that they started doing one of the Exorcist scenes, she said one of the things that she says, and he totally forgot his lines. He was so taken back by the filthy stuff this little girl was saying to him. I thought that was a funny little note that somebody posted on there. I thought she was fantastic. I feel bad for her because she was basically typecast for the rest of her career.
Oh, absolutely.
So she had no chance of coming out of this as anything other than the Exorcist girl.
Yep. She did the second one,
which was a made-for-TV movie that was just terrible.
Yeah. And then she did the parody.
Yeah.
Of it, and that's really all I remember her being
in. I'd say she's probably been in a handful, 6 to 10 more movies, and they're all low-budget horror movies, and they're all just feeding off of her name as part of The Exorcist.
Yeah, she's Linda Blair, the Reagan,
Yeah.
No, but I think as a young girl, and wasn't that her debut?
It was her feature film debut. I think. She was in like 2 little things, one uncredited and one like a TV show or something. So yeah, basically it was her bursting onto the scene. So
yeah, but she did a great job.
Yeah.
Another thing I want to say about her character too is the special effects that they did on her as she became more and more possessed were pretty intense for a movie in the 70s.
Yeah, definitely. They really came. And so, again, and it's a visual thing, but in the book, she's changing appearances. She looks like she does in the movie, but nobody in the book is acting like there's an issue. Oh, well, she can, they just do that. Their mind is so powerful, it could make you look like this.
Yeah.
All I'm thinking of is if my kid turned and looked like this, I just immediately assumed she was possessed
Yeah.
and have her at
Even
the
when
church.
her head spun around, it was still not good enough to 100% say
Yeah, I
she was
know.
possessed.
I know. And I will say, at the end of the movie, I felt like the mother's character was way more into believing in God than the book version. Because
Yeah.
she's all like, I'm going to call this priest later. She tells the priest, Father Daly or whatever, I'll call you later. I want to talk to you some more about stuff. It felt like she was a little bit more open to religion. But the lady in the book was like, nah, I still don't believe in God. Not going
Yeah.
to do it.
Yeah. 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 Of course, Father Charis.
Now, he did do a good job of kind of portraying his lack of, not maybe lack of faith, but his struggle with his faith during the exorcism, because the other, Father Marin, was so on point with everything that his mistakes and his blunders stood out more
Right.
as his
Yeah.
faltering, and then when he loses um, his temper and starts punching her and stuff, I thought, you would never have seen the other one do that.
Nope.
He was really good. I mean, he really tapped into something. I'm not sure what, and I don't think he was, from what I understand, he was a writer first. He got into acting and he was doing like plays and stuff, and then he got cast in this role. So, um, unfortunately, when he's in Exorcist 3, by that time, he's been drinking for a long time. They said that he couldn't remember any of his lines. And so that's why they have Brad Dourif doing most of the speaking lines, because he's possessed by another guy. So when the guy talks, he has Brad Dourif, because they couldn't get him to do much more than mumble, which I hate to hear at the end when some of these, iconic actors, even if they're iconic just for one role, you always
Yeah.
hate to find out that they've had a troubled life and that they're at the end barely holding on.
Yeah. Well, that's a shame. I didn't know that. I wonder if it's because of, the movie. Like,
Yeah, I didn't really deep dive. I don't know if it was just, I mean, he has a huge IMDb page, so he's done other things, and he went back to stage and stuff. So it could have been relationship stuff. From what I understand, he's the father of Jason Patrick, who was a big star in the 80s and 90s. So
oh,
um, maybe
hmm,
there was a family thing, or it could
yeah.
just have been hereditary. One of those, sometimes people just kind of fall down those paths.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Max von Sydow. Father
Which
Marin.
in my head, he's always this old. And I'm sure he wasn't old when he filmed it, because he was still around for what, another 20, 30 years, it seems.
Yes. Yeah.
But here he looks ancient, but
Mm-hmm.
I can't think of a role where I think of him as a young man. But he's
Yeah.
always been a great actor. I've always enjoyed him in everything he's done. And he's really good as Father Man. I mean, that
Mm-hmm.
beginning, I would have loved for them to, instead of doing Exorcist 2, to do the prequel that they came out in the 2000s and let him be Father Marin the first time he meets the demon.
Yeah.
I would have loved to have seen that happen in the late 70s or early 80s, because that would have been an interesting take, because I think he's a great actor.
Yeah. I don't recall in the movie, um, in the book, there was the scene where Marin goes into the room and they have that connection.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's saying you're going to lose this time or something. I don't recall that being in the movie.
Yeah, you know what? I don't remember hearing it either. And then you get to the point where he's dead and she's just giggling. Oh, that's
Mm,
probably the best scene in the movie too. When um when he comes in and he finds Father Marin dead and she's giggling like a little schoolgirl. I think that might be the scariest and maybe the most telling, but that's the closest you get to her gloating over Father Marin.
yeah.
And I think it would have been a much better scene or a much better setup is as soon as he walks in, she calls him out and says, "Oh, this time you're going to lose." But yeah, you're right, and I'm sure somebody who knows this movie, line for line, is screaming at the
Yes.
recording, saying "you idiots." But that's what the you can hit us up on the Facebook or down below, leave a message if you think that we missed something important. But
Yeah.
yeah, you're right. I don't think he's so no nonsense. I mean, so yeah, no nonsense. He walks in, he doesn't acknowledge that he recognizes or thinks that it's the same thing from the beginning of the movie. He just
Hmm.
straight into the exorcism part. And
Yeah.
I'll tell you, that was that not the grossest stuff? The vomit and the spit,
Yes.
how thick they made it. And when she spits in his face, and it looks like it's 2.5 inches thick glob
Yeah.
of junk. I thought,
Ugh.
in fact, I thought that was worse than the vomit scene. Yeah, when she throws
Yeah.
up on Father Charis. So yeah, no, I thought they did a great job with the special effects, and especially when you think 71, they're still kind of thinking inside the box.
Hmm.
I'm
So,
wondering. Yeah,
oh,
okay, good. I do want to talk about this now. What were you
yeah.
gonna say?
I was gonna say we didn't really talk about Dennings a lot. I think we maybe mentioned him once or twice, but we really didn't talk a lot about him when we did the episode on the book. Um, but he was just a miserable character.
Yeah, and not only, but he was central to the idea in the book. Completely unnecessary in the movie. We didn't need
Yeah.
to. We didn't need him at all. They didn't even acknowledge when she talks with the British accent and says, your daughter's killed me to the mom. She
Yeah.
she in passing later says she thinks the daughter killed Burks, but she never. They never say, who is this? I don't think so. Did Father Vargas ask about all the different um, people that were talking, the accents and stuff? I don't remember him talking about that portion.
No.
Um, yeah, the unnecessary. Other than, and again, what was his main point in the book was to infuriate the help, who he kept calling a Nazi, and then later when they're doing the investigation for the criminal, for his death, they keep trying to say those two had a bad relationship, and so maybe the help is the reason he got murdered.
Yeah.
So every reason that you would need him to be an important character in the novel was immediately erased by the way they handled it in the movie.
Yeah. And I
So
don't either the movie or the book when he died. I don't know if they had him be the way he is. Because first of all, let me tell you, that woman, Chris McNeil, is a saint for dealing with this guy. Yes, he's her producer or whatever. Um, but in the book, he was like calling her up in the middle of the night, like yelling and doing. But
yeah,
anyways, I don't know if they made him be the way he is, so you really didn't care that he died.
well, see, and I think you're supposed to think he was a central figure in her life,
Yeah,
and so you were supposed to think this was a big event. But you're right, the character was so unlikable that we didn't even bat an eye when he died, and then we go and continue on, having to read about all the other things with Kellerman,
yeah,
the detective. They mishandled it totally because in the movie they try and make it sound like they have a romantic relationship on top of everything else. So maybe then that's why she reacts the way she does. In the book, it doesn't really come across as a romantic relationship. It almost comes across as a father-daughter relationship.
yeah. It definitely comes across as a codependent relationship,
Yeah.
because obviously he has a drinking problem. Um,
And it
it,
makes
it
you, I was gonna
yeah
say, it makes you wonder.
in the book it's more evident that
Oh
he
yeah.
has a drinking problem than it does in the movie. Um,
Yeah, in the movie he's just an asshole. And
yeah,
so,
yeah,
but you're supposed to know that he's been drinking to get to that point. But no, he's just a loudmouth,
hmm,
pushing buttons. In the book, it's a little more, I don't know what it is. In the book, it's obviously he's an alcoholic, but yeah, I don't know. I just well, they tried to. What's Linda Blair's character, Reagan. She tries to make it sound like that they're dating almost
yeah,
in the movie, but you don't even get that vibe when you're watching the few scenes he's in. You don't really get that vibe at all.
no, no,
They
definitely
did a
not.
terrible, yeah, they really didn't do a good job of And I mean, really, he's only there so Kellerman can be introduced. Other than
Yeah,
that, we wouldn't even have a reason to meet the detective in the movie.
exactly. So it's like in the book, it's all about he dies so that the storyline with Carl being the suspect can
Right.
happen, but that didn't happen in the movie. So
Yeah.
I don't know if he really even needed to die
Well,
in
he
the
needs,
movie.
I guess he needs to die just to prove that she's possessed because,
His head's turned around.
right.
Yeah.
And so then they can introduce the idea of witchcraft and Satanism to the father, which then gives um, Varys another reason to think that maybe she is possessed because there is this stuff going on.
Yeah.
But I mean,
Yeah.
it's a weak, it's a weak red trail.
Hmm. Yeah. And that's another thing that I just thought of too. They in the movie they didn't focus as much on Black Mass.
Yeah.
In the book, it's like every other page,
Right.
after the party, anyways. Black Mass, Black Mass, Black
And
Mass.
I
So
think they did all that just to explain why she was going to be doing what she was doing with the crucifix later. But when you see it, it's so shocking. You don't really need an explanation. You just see the blood and her screaming, F me. And then she's
yeah,
doing all that. And then you're like, yeah, I don't need an explanation to understand that this is disturbed behavior.
exactly,
So,
exactly.
which you
So,
really didn't need in the book either. But I guess, he was definitely there to explain.
mhm,
He was an over explainer. So,
yep. All right. So Sharon, she was a central character, um, but I got a, of course, she was the one taking care of Reagan. She's the one that let Charis in, or called him, if you're thinking of the book.
yeah.
Um,
She's
so
the one that leaves Burks or whatever. Yeah, Burks with Reagan, to go
yep,
get the medicine.
yep,
So, but in the movie, you wouldn't really know that how important she was to the family. I mean, in the book, you get a much better idea that she basically is everything. She takes care
yeah,
of the entire household, even though they have people that do the cooking and cleaning. If without this lady, they get nothing done, and you
yep,
don't really get that feeling in this. She's more of just a conduit for them to get from point A to point B, and not have it be the Chris character every time.
yeah,
So I thought they kind of did her. You know what? She for what they needed, she fit perfectly, and she was fine. Um, it would have been nice to see a little bit more of her reaction to Reagan's situation, especially when they start the exorcism stuff up.
hmm, yeah. She kind of, um, in the movie, and I guess more I guess in the book as well. She kind of was like not freaking out, like Chris.
Yeah,
She was freaking out when her daughter was doing stuff, or becoming more and more evident that she was possessed. But Sharon was kind of like, yeah, you want me to go
yeah,
make coffee? I'll go make coffee, you know?
right. Yeah, she seemed very detached until the end when she was
Yeah,
like, "No, I'm not coming anywhere near y'all, even though
yeah,
she's no longer possessed. I will just take my 2 weeks pay and I'm out of here."
yeah,
So
exactly. Yep, nope. I'm done.
yeah.
She's out of there. And then, of course, we've got Kinderman.
Yeah, and I thought the actor they got was perfect. He was able to do what they wanted him to do from the book. That disarming attitude without having to repeat the same 4 words 100 times. He
Yeah.
was able to be charming in that old man, befuddled kind of way that they really. I mean, he hammered that in the book, and I thought this guy was way better. I
Yeah.
thought he was fun. The back and forth he had with the priests, and just the few little bit that he had discussing with the mother. I thought he was probably that was perfect. That was what they needed more in the book, and I was
Yeah.
happy that they pulled away from a lot of that storyline. I when I went into it to rewatch it, I was thinking for life of me I couldn't remember how much of it was going to be in the movie. I was very satisfied that they decided to trim the fat and give
Hmm.
us more of the Exorcist,
Yeah.
the exorcism and the demon at the end. So
Yeah. But I don't know. I'm kind of like, I get the point of Kinderman, especially since it opens up for Exorcist 3. But I do kind of feel like because we don't get the storyline with him investigating Carl, and we don't get a closure on the desecrations of the church, and we don't get the insights. I don't know if you remember the scenes from the book where he had I think he described it as a flower, where he had his papers for the case set up. I kind of think that the investigation was kind of moot. Like, really didn't.
100%. Because at the end, what was he going to do? Arrest the girl? Because there's no other. Up to that point, we had been given no other suspects, and so it's like he already knew the girl was guilty, and so he didn't know what to do. So it was like, what? I think they probably ended up ruling everything as suicides because the father was going to have the same issue. He fell out of the same window, except for this time he threw himself out of the window.
Yeah.
And I will tell you, that was probably the only thing I had a problem with. I mean, overall, with the movie, the one thing was how quickly the demon left Reagan.
Yeah.
That doesn't make much sense. Unless the demon really thought the priest was going to kill the little girl, and I guess he was mad enough he might have.
Yeah.
Or was it simply the fact that you had to invite the demon in? Is like a vampire thing. If you invite a demon into you, are you going to have a better shot of pulling one out of another person? And maybe they thought they'd be able to overtake him, or maybe I guess we could say they saw that he had a faltering faith, and maybe they thought they could get in there and corrupt him. I'm sure this is going to be something that they discuss in Exorcist 3 or even the book Legion, but it's been so long since I've touched on either one. I don't have the answer on the top of my head. I wish I did. Yeah. But yeah, I'm totally with you. We don't need this. That we could have got the only reason that we need this character is so that he could have been friends and give us a little more insight into Father Barris.
Yeah.
Their back and forth kind of gives you a little bit of insight. But yeah, I'm with you 100%. This character, I mean, I was happy that they cut what they cut. They could have cut all of it and I would have been fine.
Yeah, because we know Dennings died. We know that there's gonna be some kind of investigation. You would think it's Washington D.C.
Right, exactly.
So I don't think having him as being as integral of a character in the movie as he was, just didn't find it necessary.
Yeah, I wish they would have given us a little bit more Father Dwyer too.
Yeah,
because he was bigger in the book and he had a lot of insights, and his humor would have been well placed throughout. A couple. It might have increased the tension if we would have had a couple spots of, just a palate cleanser, little joke here or there, because they really had those opportunities from the books. Because I mean, it was already written there. So, but yeah, I'm with you there. I think you could have just gone straight to just focused on the house, the priest, and the other thing. But
yeah, I mean, I don't know how much input the author had to the screenplay.
Yeah, you know what? I'm not sure. I think he wrote the screenplay, but I'm not 100% sure that he didn't have somebody else go in there and help him with it.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what his background is as a writer. I do know, like I said, I've read 3 of his books. I've read The Exorcist and Legion, which is Exorcist 3, and then The Ninth Configuration, which is more of a novella. And all 3 of them are interesting and enjoyable, well-written stuff, but the movies are always a little, off. And I do know that his novella, The Ninth Configuration, I think he wrote and directed the film for that. So I know he has some experience, and that would have been what he did after The Exorcist. But yeah, I can't tell you off the top of my head. I wish I had that for you.
Yeah, that's all right.
But you know what? We're talking about an Oscar-nominated director in charge of this. I don't know how much input he's taken from any writer, anyways. Even if it is the guy that created the whole idea of it. I mean, this guy is. I mean, I know this is one of his earlier movies, but he's coming off of the French Connection.
Yeah,
he's not going to be. He's he's living off his ego. If he's like any other director from this time period, if you watch any documentaries on these directors, you know, they come from nowhere, a lot of artsy fartsy kind of stuff, and then all of a sudden they win an Oscar, and then they're just doing whatever, you know, they giving you a 4-hour film, you know, like the guy who did the Deer Hunter and all that stuff. So
Yeah.
you know, for what it was, and really, if you look at a lot of movies in the 70s, they don't hold up. They haven't held up since the 90s. So, and we're 20 years past this, so for sure they don't hold up. Exorcist holds up.
Absolutely, it does. Yep.
100%. The acting is done well. The way he did the cinematography is really impressive. The special effects are you know, top notch for, especially like you said, for the time period. Because we haven't even been introduced to the true. I mean, special effects have been around forever, and they've always had all these different ways of doing it. But for real horror movies and horror movie lovers, I mean, there are a handful of guys that are the special effect kings, and none of them were even around yet. So, I think I enjoyed the movie. I'll be honest with you. I tried to get out of watching it. I was going to Cliff Notes it, and YouTube let me down, and I ended up renting it. And I had to get the old version. And when I was done with it, I thought, wow, I'm glad YouTube let me down, because I enjoyed it. I thought overall, I enjoyed it more than I enjoyed the book, and I thought the book was really good. So even though we bitched and moaned about it for an hour.
Yeah, but hey, it was a good book.
Yeah, I thought so. You know what? When we're done doing this little package of 4 of 70s iconic horror, I have a feeling this one may be number 1.
Yeah.
We'll see. And I think next, after we do our next technical episode, we're going to get into Amityville, and so we'll see how well that was written. I can't for the life of me remember. I read that about the same time I read The Exorcist. 11 or 12.
Yeah, I've never read it. I'm sure I've seen the movie, but I'm not. It's been so long. It's not one that I've watched over and over again.
Right, and that's something else we need to discuss. Are we going to watch the original one, or do we want to watch the Ryan Reynolds remake that came out in 2003?
Yeah, I've seen that one.
Okay, you have seen that one? Okay, that's perfect. Then let's watch the original. And then you can tell me if the other one is better or worse. I haven't seen that one. It was in my dark period. So
yeah, it was. I only watched it because it was Ryan Reynolds.
Well, sure, I get that. And Melissa George is in it too. I love Melissa George. I think she's a great actress. She's in the Triangle, and she's somebody that NBC and ABC has been trying to make into something for years on their TV shows and stuff. I think she's a great actress, and she's in Treatment. The first time HBO did a show called In Treatment, and it's about psychiatric help, and each episode is a different person the psychologist is trying to help. She's one of the patients, and I just think she's a really good actress. So I thought the pairing of the two would be amazing, except for not enough to make me ever sit down and watch the movie. So I guess it didn't work. So, but yeah, I'll definitely want to hear what you think about it when we get to that point. But that's going to be a couple episodes away. So
yeah, I am. I'm also really excited. I know we're getting off topic a little bit, but I'm also excited for The Omen because I've never seen the movie and I've never read the book.
Oh, that's great. Then you're going to get a double whammy.
Yeah.
So, and I guess I really think they remade that one as well. And it's almost a shot-for-shot remake. And so it's really not worth even worrying about checking it out. So we'll see the original. We'll watch the original. That one's, I like, it's a good, I love that movie. It's a good movie. I haven't seen it in a while, but, I've probably seen the remake more recently, but it's shot for shot. And I always hate when they do that. Let's take a slightly different approach if you're going to do a remake.
Yeah. But Exorcist, I'd give it a 5 out of 5. I mean, it was terrifying. The characters were great, even though some of them we think could have done without.
Yeah.
And it was just an overall good movie. The special effects.
Everything that we did like about the novel and focused on those, and everything that you and I discussed not liking about the novel, they did a wonderful job of either skirting around it or not, you know, overdoing it. And they really gave us they made it a meat and potato exorcism movie, which I kind of enjoyed. And
Yeah.
the acting was well done. They did a good job of casting. You know, sometimes I think we're gonna find when we see some of these that the cast, you know, like when we did Hellraiser, we had questions on some of the casting.
Yeah. Yeah, but I love The Exorcist. It was a great movie. I'll watch it all the time.
Yeah,
Somebody ever, 20 years from now, if somebody says to me, "Hey, you want to watch The Exorcist?" I'm probably going to be like, "Hell yeah,
yeah,
let's watch
yeah.
The
It's funny.
Exorcist."
I watched it a ton as a young, as a teenager. You know, when I was younger, I haven't watched it since I guess 20 years, but uh, it held up enough that I would watch it again. You know, say in a month or two, I could probably see myself sitting down. I actually wish I would have bought it instead of just renting it, so then
Yeah,
I could go sit down and watch it again without having to worry about all that. But maybe I'll
yeah,
look for a DVD or Blu-ray. I mean, good special director's cut or something.
yeah. The only thing I didn't like about the director's cut was the flashes they did with the weird face.
Now, from what I understand, they did that in the theater. They tried to do it subliminally, and it freaked people out.
Oh
And they
yeah,
would rush out of the theater because they were having these, flashes of these things. Of course, it's the 70s, they're not used to seeing. By the time, if we wanted to see something like this in the theater, we just laugh and point. Oh, look at that. They're trying to freak us out.
yeah,
But I
yeah.
always love when I read or see what they used to do to people in the 50s through the 70s at like theaters and
Hmm.
gatherings and stuff. Because they would like CIA psychologically mind f these people, who just bought a ticket, and
Yeah,
they're doing stuff to them. It's like, it's just amazing what they thought they could get away with or do. You would be horrified if you found out that they were doing that to you now through TV or whatever.
yeah,
It's just a funny thing. That's always funny to think how loose everything was back then.
yeah. They're putting LSD in the popcorn.
Yeah, I would put it past certain
Yeah,
things. You hear these stories and things just getting passed around and done, and then you're like, oh, okay, great. Now I've got to deal with this for the rest of my life. So
yep,
yeah, I thought it was a great movie. I always enjoyed it, and I guess I enjoyed it more than I enjoyed the book. I thought they did a good job of focusing on the right stuff.
yeah. Absolutely. I agree 100%. Okay, so now it is time for the Not Stephen King Book of the Week. All right, so for my choice this week, I have Crack by D.E. McCluskey. It's a pretty beefy book. So it's not a novella, it's a full novel. It is a story about addiction. And of course, with crack, you think drugs, but that's not where this book goes at all. Joe O'Hara gets in an accident. And of course, spoiler alert, I might spoil some things. And he gets addicted to a sound that he heard during the accident. I don't want to give too much away because it will ruin the what fascinated me the most about this book.
As I say, it's
Um,
an interesting premise.
yeah. So he gets in an accident. He gets addicted to a sound that he heard during the accident, and things just spiral from there. So it's definitely a good read, a disturbing read. And there's two storylines. There's the storyline of Joe, um, and then there's the storyline of the detective who's investigating what is happening. And at the
And
end, it comes together in a very weird way. And you think, oh, this is going to end one way, but it doesn't. And it kind of ends up in like I don't know, almost a happy ending, but it's not really. So yeah, it's very,
so we'll have to check it out and find out, see if we
yeah,
decide if it's happy or not.
Yeah.
I was going to point out, did he do a better job than Blady did with the detective in this one? It sounds like he
Yeah.
did. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
so there
Yeah.
you
The
go.
detective in this is a woman. So
Well, it sounds interesting, guys, and I like the writer. He's a nice guy.
yeah, and this, it's a very I'm not going to say bland cover, but there's not a lot of color. It's black and white. There's like a little bit of red on the helmet there. Um, but it's very striking,
Mhm.
this cover.
Yeah, I like
It's
the cover a lot.
yeah, it's very eye-catching.
I like his
Um,
font choice. I like
yeah,
everything he did with that. So,
yeah. So definitely check this out. We'll have the link in the description to the where you can find the book.
yep, link will be below.
Yeah.
And
But yeah, definitely give it a read. It is almost 400 pages, so if you
hey, you
know,
know what? That's impressive. That's awesome.
yeah. And I blew through it because it was just so like there's no point where I'm like, oh, this is kind of boring right now. It's just like you pick it up and you read it and you just want to finish.
Well, that's great. It's a sign of a good writer. So
Yeah.
grabs your attention, holds on to you. It's a good idea. It's a totally different idea. The way you explained the very beginning, the addiction being what it
Mhm.
is, that to me is unique and worth checking out just on its own. So
Yeah, it's very disturbing.
very cool.
Yeah.
So, like I said, link below, and you guys check out the book and let us know what you think,
Yep.
either there or on Facebook.
Yep. And if you have any comments or questions about what we discussed in this episode or any other episode, you can email us at what'sintheboxhorror@gmail.com. All right. Well,
All right.
thank you very much, and we'll see you on our next episode.
Yep. See you guys later.